In the town of Duxbury, the name Alden carries most of the historical weight. Not to be forgotten is the Bradford family, as the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society has put major resources into their latest project called Reimagining Bradford. On display at the Bradford House on Tremont Street is an exhibit showcasing the lives of the 4 Bradford daughters. We spoke with the executive director of the society before the exhibit opened to the public to learn more about these 4 extraordinary women.
The DRHS has been engaged in a capital campaign for the last several years to reimagine the Bradford House on Tremont Street in Duxbury. This is a multi-year project in order to complete structural repairs on the building and to completely reimagine the exhibitions to be more inclusive and to tell the story of the Bradford daughters. In this room, we feature information on the 4 Bradford daughters, Mariah, Elizabeth, Lucia, and Charlotte, who were born in this house and lived their entire lives here on Tremont Street in Duxbury. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to create a real sense of a relationship between the viewers and the audience and the Bradford sisters. We want you to get to know them as intimately as we know them through their letters and through the objects that they left to us in the collection. The Bradford sisters were involved with most of the major social movements of the 19th century, not just involved, but deeply connected to and even founding members of things like a temperance society here in Duxbury. They were fervent abolitionists at a time when basically nobody was. They were radical, they were passionate, and they were very involved in the welfare of their community. As the Civil War broke and the world changed around them, they got more involved with the world that they lived in. Charlotte Bradford was an incredible Civil War nurse, and her career is absolutely unique to the American experience. Her sister Lucia was also a Civil War nurse, and the objects that they left behind to us not only tell their experiences as individual nurses, but they give us windows into the experience of women's experience during the Civil War and what women on the home front as well as on military lines were experiencing. We've dedicated an alcove of the house to tell other unknown, lesser-known Duxbury stories. We want to talk about people who have been largely unrecognized. We want to talk about things that deserve further conversation. We want to talk about topics that maybe are a little bit difficult. And so we've dedicated a space for a changing exhibition that will change every year and sort of add a secondary narrative to the larger Bradford story. One of the things that we've talked about in the last gallery is this notion of lives well lived and aging, taking care of each other in a world before hospice or social security or social services, what medical care was like at the time, and how they made do with what they had here in the home. And we are fortunate to have been left some really interesting artifacts about healthcare. So we want to get out of this notion of presenting historical objects to you with the rank and file information on the labels. Of course, that information is still available to you, but we want you to think about the larger narratives of community and identity, aging, activism, larger questions that we still live with today in the 21st century. It's not so far, not such a big difference, not such a big gap between the Bradford sisters and what we experience today. And it's those very things that make this museum still relevant to audiences.